Power Women podcast. For your career and your life, no matter what business you're in.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Northern Power Women podcast. I'm Sam Walker, she's Simone Roche. Oh no, do you know what? I've made a mistake. I need to start again, Simone. Shall I do it again? Hang on, wait. All right. Hello and welcome to the award-winning Northern Power Women. Do you know what? Let's just have a moment of blowing our own trumpet. This time last week, Simone, you and I were saying, look, this is going to come out after the awards, so we need to delete as applicable. Either we won or awards don't really matter. I think we're our two responses. But man alive, I think you heard my little squeal from Arizona when the British Podcast Award celebration was going on and the Northern Power Women podcast won silver. I reckon you could hear me in Liverpool. Could you?
Oh, I could hear your mum in Australia as well. How amazing. And, lady, we chuffed to bits, with silver. Can you believe it? We were up against a lot of the big boys and girls out there. But did you win anything else? Just asking.
Well, I was very lucky. I did have a very successful Saturday, which was a very big headache on Sunday. But no, I was really chuffed that another podcast I make, a Women in Sport podcast called The Game Changers, with the brilliant Sue Anstis, picked up the bronze in the sports section, which again blew my tiny little mind because, goodness me, some of the sports podcasts out there are off the scale huge. So I'm so thrilled for Sue and the team there. And then my little Desert Diaries won bronze. Oh my gosh, in entertainment, being second to George Ezra, yes, international pop star. So
that is the blower that was in the goodie bag.
Look at that.
Just saved it for you.
Absolutely thrilled. So thank you so much for all your messages. If of course, if you're listening to the podcast, we would love you to rate and review us because that's how more people can listen. So thank you.
And do you know what? I think people must want a sponsor now. Surely now we are award-winning at a British Podcast Awards. Sponsors, please come in, share the love. We're loving these weekly chats, absolutely loving it. So get on board. We need your support. Look at us being brave now, asking for it.
Well, absolutely. And I was channeling you, Simone, at the weekend because I did a Twitter thread about winning the awards because, I am one person, an independent podcaster, and won 3 awards at this major awards. And I thought, you know what? The big boys out there, the big broadcasting production houses who aren't sitting in a swimming costume in the cupboard recording like I am. And I thought, but you always feel awkward. And I don't know what it is, especially I think about us as women in business. We feel awkward about standing up and shouting about our achievements. So I thought about you and I thought, no, Simone would tell me to ruddy do this. So I'm hoping that everybody who has maybe read that thread at Walker Sam on Twitter, shout about your achievements. And someone gave me a lovely analogy and said, self-promotion is a bit like cooking. It's lovely if someone else does it for you. If you haven't got someone else to do it for you, if you don't do it yourself, you are going to starve. And I thought, I love that.
Absolutely. And it was brilliant, wasn't it? We spoke, didn't we, on Sunday afternoon, because I just wanted to check in going, are you alive? Are you still partying in Arizona? Because I was obviously, we're thrilled. We started this 3 years ago, yes. Didn't we? Podcasts are obviously have gone through the roof over the last few years. And we've been at this together. You're the expert. We put you above our weight on this. And I was so pleased. Absolutely so thrilled to bits. We had to wait. If you haven't sort of seen it, you can actually watch back the show on the British Podcast Awards YouTube channel, and you got to go into a Zoom room, so you had to have your best sort of Oscars face, didn't you? And you had you had like Stephen Fry, Sarah Cox, you had all these like super celebrities and broadcasters, presenters from all over the country, sort of presenting and announcing the awards. Yeah. Thrilled to bits, and well done you. And we absolutely need to high five the achievements and high five all the good stuff going on. So yeah, winner, chicken dinner. Or tofu dinner for you.
Winner, yes, plant-based protein dinner. Doesn't quite have the same ring. Now, listen, before we move on, because we don't want to just talk about how fabulous we are for the entire podcast episode, although, hello, we've had a lovely week and we should celebrate. But excuse me, Simone Roche, you also have won all the prizes in the world again. Please talk me through what happened last week.
I was asked by Sandy Lindsay, who's one of our power list, great advocate for everything that we do, Northern Power Women World. And the Institute of Directors Award should have been back in May, and then they shifted to virtual. Anyway, so Sandy has been in cahoots with Northern Power Man about getting me to the ceremony in the first instance. So we're part of a WhatsApp group, come along, and they were really, and then when it went to virtual, they're like, there's no way we're going to get her to come to a virtual event. So they pretended that I was going to be announcing a very secret special award right at the end of the ceremony, and guess what? It was for me.
Wow.
It was the IOD Northwest Chairman's Award for Excellence in Director and Board Practice. So I couldn't understand why Rob came in to the office quite dressed up in a shirt, and then the next minute I looked around, he's got a tie on. I'm like, what on earth? So it was a proper table turned moment. But yeah, it was the chair. Apparently each year he selects who he thinks is, who should be put forward for this. So it's brilliant, isn't it, when, to be nominated. It's really brilliant this was a proper recognition. So yeah, thrilled to bits. Yeah, it has been quite a week, and I've had to sort of clear a bit of space on the shelf, to be honest. But yes, absolutely high-fiving. Congrats to all the other winners. I feel massively privileged and honoured to be amongst them all. So thank you, Ra.
I haven't got one of those things, so I'm going to have to just do a terrible sound effect. Well done, Simone. I'm so proud of you, and oh my goodness, I just feel like we need a little lie down with a large G&T, but let's do that after the podcast, shall we? Well done, though.
Indeed.
Really brilliant stuff. Now, look, we've got so much to talk about as ever, but I know we really wanted to discuss this week about young people, actually. Now, Northern Power Futures, of course, is an organisation very close to your heart that you set up to really amplify the voices of younger people. There is the Northern Power Futures podcast, which answers a lot of questions that younger people have about their careers, especially at this really difficult time. And I think quite often we forget the younger people and the fact that they are having a very, very hard times of things at the moment, because, in fact, as hard as we're all finding it, quite often they don't have an established career and they don't have that experience that some of us are lucky enough to be able to fall back on, even if we do go through a tough time.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, we've really enjoyed making the Northern Power Futures podcast because it's the questions from the voices and the concerns of those young people. But we've got a young 19-year-old Eleanor who's part of our team. And so it's been really great to literally get straight from the straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, about what the concerns of her and her friends are. But one of the things we were talking about this week was the under 16s and sort of I suppose, again, a couple of people we're talking to, they've got young children who are sort of between the ages of 10 and 14, 15. But there seems to be a real bravery in that age group. So you've absolutely got a fear of that early career or pre-career, sort of 16 plus. But in the 16 and under, there seems to be a real bravery. So Emma she's been out this week with her son playing football, and it was so amazing to watch him socially distanced play with his mates. And what was really cool was watching them making their own rules up, the new socially distanced rules. But it was almost fearless, whereby you look a few years older and that's where you've got that fear, and Alex Cousins we've had on the podcast, she talked about her son, and he's in that younger bracket, not bothered, he's happy to wear the mask, he's not bothered about what people think of it, think of him not getting skitted by his mates or stuff like that. So it's really interesting to see these kind of the age brackets and how the young people are dealing, and how I almost feel like that sort of 16 plus, I worry about that age group almost becoming old before their time with worry, where this should be the prime of their life, shouldn't it? Starting their careers, starting their educational journeys, etc. And yet they're fueled with worry, and our under 16s are out there sort of flying and playing again, and being young actually, whereas the 16 plus are maybe growing up a bit too soon. I don't know, that's what I got the sense of this week. Worried.
I think what's something to take into consideration, of course, is perhaps the under 16s haven't yet formulated in their head. They're not at that stage where they have started that career planning or that further education planning. So for them, it's a case of, well, I'll worry about what I'm going to do next when I get to the point where I have to think about it. So if the world has changed by then, well, they'll start that planning then. Whereas, of course, these young people trapped in the sort of 18 to 22, 23 up bracket have entered the world of work and further education in, quote, the old norm, and have started and then all immediately been stopped. And we've got people whose careers has only just got going and are now on what they're feeling is a semi-permanent hiatus. And I think that's a really frightening position for them to be in.
Here's a worry, and we've seen the unemployment figures. We talked about it the week. We're potentially going to go through the roof, and they are. It's starting to show, isn't it? It's starting. So, but then equally, I am seeing some of those opportunities out there. I was talking with another one of our power list earlier this week. She works for the Innovation Agency, and they're creating these really high-level apprenticeships. So I think I'm hoping that that there's going to be some creativity, because I was talking to them about that would be great. We'll be able to get them out there to our communities. And she was like, oh, and then she starts thinking, oh, maybe we could do this as well. And if everyone just does that bit of thinking, if we all do that bit of creative thinking about not just instantly going back into the old norm or whatever the new norm be, we have to think about, right, how can we try and allay some of these fears, and how can we actually take action to create opportunities, to create a pathway, to create some guidance. So I think what we're doing with Northern Power Futures, what we're doing on our power platform, where we're creating that environment to put those opportunities on, what we need to urge everybody to be innovative with their thinking, as we navigate a new way of working, as we navigate a potential modelling for a second spike. We don't know, do we? We're almost like, right, so I'll throw the dice today and this is the way I'm going to go, but we're not sure because we could still go that way.
This is the hardest position to be in, to not be able to plan because we simply don't know the parameters we're dealing with, the parameters we're working within. And I think that's incredibly challenging for businesses, for individuals, for everybody. I want to just mark the really sad news about the closure of the Deaf Institute and Gorilla, two just legendary music venues in Manchester. I know it's happening across the north, where music venues and the whole of the country, in fact, music venues are having to close because, goodness me, can we even imagine a time where we can all go back to a gig again? And it's a real shame, because I think these have been hubs and hearts of communities, especially in the north of England. Not having to get on a train and go to London to see a band that you love has been so important, not just for the band's careers, but for so many people. And I won't just say young people, because I used to go to those venues all the time when I lived in Manchester to see these great little bands and have that wonderful experience of seeing live music. And it's not just music venues that are under threat and closing down in our regional hubs, but of course there's big worries about news, isn't there?
Oh, there is. I was talking about this just earlier today. You've got The Guardian, you've got the BBC, you've got the local news outlets. So the Yorkshire Post, which is award-winning in its content that it puts out, Liverpool Echo, Manchester. You've got all these regional news outlets that are either proposing to or already making cuts. So I have a real sense of worry. I mean, we have talked before about when the regional news press have come together to put a united front page out, and I absolutely worry about us losing our identity and our northern voice and our needs, and going back to a London central news outlet. That I think would be a nightmare, and it's happening on sort of all the different channels, and that is a real worry I think it's a worry for all of us. We constantly shout, don't we? We work with the BBC 50/50 project about getting better representation in the media, and that equally it's that intersectionality of all of that. We need to have our regional voices represented. So I'm very fearful about going away from that, because I think it's so important that we have those voices.
Yeah, and it's just a real shame. I mean, I worked in commercial radio for years. I had a very happy time at Key 103 in Manchester. You got Radio City in Liverpool, Radio Air in Leeds, Hallam FM in Sheffield, Rock FM in Preston. They're all no more. They simply do not exist. And now there is the homogenisation of what used to be local radio. And I know the hub is in Manchester, but it's almost irrelevant that it's in Manchester. It could be anywhere. And I do feel there's that sadness because there is such a community around local radio. And you have got, for example, in Manchester, XS Manchester, which is a kind of rock and indie station, which is still a local station in Manchester, but it is one of the smaller players. Capital now isn't a fully local radio station. I know that is reflected in the major cities all around the north as well. It's the way the world is going, and I guess as we move into a more virtually working world as well, we are losing even more of a connection with our local communities in a way. So again, this is something else to really add into the whole thought process of what the future may look like, isn't it? It's overwhelming, Simone.
I think you're right. This is the challenging time now. Back in March, we had no idea how long this was going to go on for. We absolutely did not envisage sort of 4 months. So I think the not knowing, you've got absolutely a proportion of the population that is just going back to normal, what they think is their normal, but there isn't one. There isn't one. And if people think that's what it is now, well, I think, they're going to be looking back and we don't know, do we? Weeks, months, we don't. I think it's just this is a really strange, we're in limbo, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. You know what I'm going to ask you for now? You know what we need in our lives?
Do you know what? I cannot wait for a good old life lesson.
Yes, and Lianne Potter is providing our life lessons today. Tell us about Lianne.
She works for NHS Digital. She is queen of cyber, and she's involved in so many different groups over in Leeds and is absolutely part of a girl tech gang over there. So she's lively, she's vibrant, and she's a proper role model, part of our Northern Power Futures list this year. So thank you so much, Lianne. Here's your life lessons.
Hi, I'm Lianne Potter. I'm a cybersecurity analyst at NHS Digital on their training scheme. I retrained for a career in tech about 2 years ago from a decidedly untechnical role in the third sector. I can often be found under the handle Technically Speaking Leads. That's because I do a lot of public speaking aimed at encouraging more people from non-technical or underrepresented backgrounds to consider a career in tech and address that diversity issue that we have there. Tell us about an important role model in your life. Well, I can't just pick one. So instead, I'm going to have to call upon the holy trinity of the Leeds tech scene. That's Sarah Tulip and Deb Hetherington from Women in Leeds Digital and Natasha Seysalem from Empowering Women with Tech. These women have so much passion and drive for what they do. They're so incredibly dedicated about encouraging women into tech, and everything they do pretty much inspires me. And I have no doubt that without their influence, when I was first starting to retrain for a career in tech and going to their events, I wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for them. They've just been such a fantastic role model. What's one piece of advice that has really stuck with you? Be vocal. You need to be vocal and let people know what you want to achieve. I used to think that if you worked hard, did a good job, that it'd get noticed and recognised and then good things would happen, just by magic. But one of the best pieces of advice I ever received was that people, especially people who you want to be recognised, are incredibly busy. So if we put that into perspective, if the people you're trying to be noticed by are incredibly busy thinking about their own career progression, who has time to think about yours? So you need to be vocal about where you want to go, what your ambitions are, and crucially, be vocal about our achievements, really shout about them. What advice would you pass on to someone starting their career today? I would say if it's a career in tech, find your tech tribe. I owe a lot of my success to the tech community. They were there for me when I was deciding whether or not to take the plunge and join the industry, and they supported me because I was new to the industry, not in spite of being new. We're so lucky in Leeds to have a tech community that's so full of lovely and friendly people who just spend so much time lifting each other up. I don't think I'd be here if it wasn't meant for them today. When have you faced imposter syndrome and what did you do about it? I'm waiting to come out of imposter syndrome. Totally out of my depth, really, in terms of my past 10, 15 years experience. So I constantly feel like I've got something to prove, but not necessarily just to others, but to myself as well. I'm constantly always thinking, should I know this? Does everyone else know this? Or, how do you build that? And the way I've sort of tried to beat the imposter syndrome demons is take it one day at a time. I'm always trying to remind myself of how far I've come. If you actually sit down and talk to people, nobody really knows everything there is to know about tech. So don't make assumptions that everyone knows more than you do. Tell us about a time you had to be resilient. I remember when I first started my first job in tech, and I remember I came in early and I was keen to get my IT stuff set up. There weren't many people in first thing in the morning. There was a bank of desks opposite me and they hadn't noticed that I'd sort of come in early, and I overheard a conversation that made my blood absolutely boil. They were talking about the latest recruitment drive, which was the one I'd been included with, and they suggested the reason why the organisation had hired so many women was to meet a diversity inclusion quota. So I was absolutely livid because, I knew I'd put in all this hard work, sacrificed so much, went through a really rigorous recruitment scheme, only to find that certain people in the organisation still had quite a sexist view about women coming into tech. I didn't expect to have to raise a HR issue on my first day. Rather than get angry or retreat into myself, I made it my mission to get as many women and people from non-traditional backgrounds into the industry as possible. If it hadn't been for that first awful day in tech, I might have just kept my head down, probably just carried on just doing that job. But because of that incident, it gave me the drive to speak about the importance of diversity, about increasing equality in the industry. So my resilience to that incident gave me the fire in my belly to do things I'd never done before and hopefully make the industry better overall.
Thank you so much to the marvellous Lianne Potter for just taking the time to share your life lessons with us. You know what I'm going to say? We want to hear from you. Come on, jump onto the award-winning Northern Power Women podcast. Send us your life lessons, please. Just get in touch. podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. Just put life lessons in the email subject box. We will tell you exactly what you do. It's dead easy. It's going to take 5 minutes of your time, and we would love to hear from you. Please, please, please do get in touch. podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. Before I head off into the sunset, Simone, I don't know if you saw this little story this week. There's been some research done by a major university of one section of our family that we haven't really thought about during lockdown, who apparently is going to really struggle even more than we might do with any sort of new normal. I'm talking about your dog.
Oh,
because
why? What's up with our pooches?
Well, at the moment, they cannot believe their luck that their humans are around 24/7. But this research shows that dogs have become kind of incapable of self-soothing because they've had us around all the time. There's a real worry that as people start to return to work, your poor dog's going to get stressed out as if we didn't have enough to worry about.
Do you know, I think that's right. We ventured to see my nieces last week, and my stepbrother and his wife, they've got miniature dachshunds, which are the most hysterical little dogs in the world because their body almost is too long for the length of their legs, so they kind of catch themselves up. They're just gorgeous, but they were talking about the same. It's the one, they're both in education and teaching professions, and they're like, we're worried. We are worried about our doggy mental health when we go back into the workplace, because they've absolutely been not just used to having us there, but the girls there as well.
Yes.
It's like proper doggy daycare entertainment every day. So what can we do? There's got to be some top tips.
Oh, I don't know. This is the anyone who has got any top tips, if you've got your dog and your dog's stressed out if you go away, do get in touch and let us know. I've got Juno, of course, and it's between her and the homeschooling of the children and the husband constantly on Zoom calls. Oh, blimey, O'Reilly, I've got enough on my plate. But any tips, do let us know, please. podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. Thank you. Right, well, there we go. Simone, I'm saluting you as ever from Arizona. thank you so much. Can you try not to win any more awards this week? I can't remember a time when you haven't won several awards in a week. But see, there's your challenge for this week. Just be like us mere mortals if you could.
Says you with 3. Stop it right there.
Thank you so much for listening. This is the Northern Power Women podcast. The next episode will, of course, be coming your way on Monday, July the 27th. Until then, I'm Sam Walker, and the Northern Power Women podcast is a What Goes On media production.